Okay, here's a recap of 7 reasons that you can experience pain in your body in the place that you feel it without a physical injury being the driver for it. My name is Drew Coverdale. I'm a physiotherapist in the UK and the northeast of England, and I help patients understand the drivers behind persistent pain. That includes the structure where they feel it, it includes the emotions behind it and the psychological thoughts linked to it and the invisible cues that bring it all to life. Understanding this means you can reverse persistent pain. Now this video is about 7 reasons why we feel pain where we do. Let's go through them all and see if it makes sense. So number 1, this is when you've had a physical injury in the past. And that injury might have been quite traumatic. It might have had lots of fear and frustration and anger around the event. It might have had none of those things. But a big emotional charge that comes with trauma. So that lays down a neural pathway of a memory of when it happened. And let me give you an example. So if you broke your leg when you were 7 on a football pitch and it was chucking it down with rain and your dad came to rescue you and you had to go to the hospital, it's a memory of all those cues linked to an actual physical event. So some people might say, oh God, I still feel my pain in the winter, comes back in the winter. I still remember that, and I might rub the leg. So there's an actual neural pathway of previous injury, but it was such an injury that there's really strong cues attached to it, strong memories attached to it, and some residual emotion. And all that means, if you've got a similar set of cues appear, you'd remember the injury. And if you've got a similar emotional charge, it has the potential to trigger that pain. One patient described an ankle injury when he'd gone right over it and had snapped the ligaments. And the mechanism exists whereby he now, if he watches an advert or something on television with someone in high heels and they just rock their ankle, he gets a little pain in his ankle. So the suggestion, even the suggestion of an injury visually, trips a little electrical impulse in his brain and body, and it triggers his pain. Okay, so that's number 1, and that can happen in anybody. Number 2, pain can come from a excessive use of a coping strategy that people use when they feel stressed. So let's say you quickly get busy. If you're upset about something, you go mop up, or you go to work, or you go for a run, or you physically push your body. So you're pushing your body as a coping mechanism to get rid or to block how you feel about something, and that's quite an understandable mechanism. It's not unhealthy in its essence, but if you don't have any other strategies other than just pushing the body, then that part of the system, that musculoskeletal system, if that's what you're using, if it's overloaded, it starts to trigger pain because you're pushing that body too much, pushing the body part too much. So it's the system that's been overloaded. The third one is, think of the systems that get neglected when we're in the fight or flight state. So if you're not eating properly because you're pushing so hard, then the digestive system's becoming neglected. If you're breathing too fast, and people who are in persistent pain overbreathe or underbreathe as a general rule, so that's challenging on that system, and it's being neglected because your focus is on pushing your body beyond where it's comfortably going to go, and that could be the cardiac system, the chest system, it could be the immune system, on short-term immune response of flushing the body with those adrenaline and cortisol drugs that make the physiological changes to help us survive a moment. If they're on too much, it switches off the long-term immune system. So any system being neglected can then present symptoms, and that can become pain in that area of the body. Number 4, think of metaphors in your life. So sometimes we feel in our body a representation of the thoughts we're thinking. So if I give you an example and say, think of a time when somebody did your head in, they do my head in, and we say that because it takes a lot of thought to deal with that person when they're with you, and often it leaves you with ways of working out how to not spend any more time with them, or what you're going to do if you have to spend more time with them. It takes lots of thought. Think of a situation where you felt sick to your stomach. Think of another time when you had the world on your shoulders. Think of another time when you had a burden on your back, or a time that someone's brought you to your knees, or trod on your toes, or something you found really hard to let go of, or something that's broken your heart. These are all descriptions of situations that appear in your life and mine where we'll feel the emotion of the thought construct. And all that means is that if we repeat in the thoughts in our head, so much so that we forget we're thinking about them, the feeling becomes the output. And it happens so fast that so repeatedly that the surge of emotion and the intensity of feeling can be painful. It's like an emotional pain. If you've never experienced an emotional pain, I'd be surprised. Think of time you've been humiliated or embarrassed or felt grief. These are real human emotions that are palpable. You sense them and they almost take over your reality in those moments. And the memories of pain, just like twisted ankle and a burn and a bruise and banging your head and a paper cut, the neural pathways that can be reignited with a thought or the same circumstances that appeared before to make you feel in that way, and that can trigger pain. Number 5, this is where pain becomes a learned behaviour. So you might have never experienced pain in that part of your body or had an injury, but you've observed other people describe that pain in a way that you copy. Now, nobody's doing this on purpose, but if you watched your dad when he was 45 and you were 5, he comes in at the end of a busy day's work and he said, my back's aching because of my arthritis. You associate the end of the day with arthritis, with the way he pulls his face and him being in pain. I had a patient who came who brought their grandchild with them. It's a relative of mine actually, and it came for a few weeks, so the child watched the treatment of the person who's receiving that treatment and get attention. And then a few weeks after this had been repeated, she was prompted to get her things ready because we were going to see Drew the physio, and as she got off the floor, and she was 2-year-old by the way, she got off the floor, she pulled her face and went, oh, me back. She's 2-year-old, she doesn't understand pain, the concepts of it, but it's a way that she saw someone getting attention, and at that age children just want their own needs met. So she could then learn how to fit into society, and it might be through complaining about pain. Fortunately, we were able to soften that reaction and give her attention other ways so it doesn't become driven through pain. So learned behaviours is another mechanism where you might have unconsciously observed someone complain about the pain, and surprise, surprise, at a certain point in your life when you almost reach the same model, or maybe a few years younger or older, start to play out the same pain behaviours. Number 6 is when you have normal changes in your body, and these are found on tests and x-rays, and that pain that you experience is then pointed out by a medical professional. The changes found in your body that may be totally coincidental and found in people who don't have pain, you are now told that that is the reason for your pain. So it's the suggestion. Again, it's an implant, so that the movements of that part of your body become justified as painful because of those changes, when actually it isn't the absolute truth. It's a truth that you are told, that is believed, and once it's a belief that you hold and you start to repeat the movements of that part of your body with fear and anticipation of pain, it becomes a driver of the pain. So suggestion is really powerful. Be very careful who you listen to when you're looking for explanations about pain. And finally, number 7 is simply where we feel the emotion in our body relating to whatever's going on in our life. That intuitive reaction The body fires at 250 miles an hour. That's much faster than conscious thought. That's our body's way of quickly going into the survival state to help us get through the thing we are thinking about that might actually be in the past, but is felt in the now as a representation of that it's coming back again soon. And the organism is triggering an output of pain that we feel in the present moment that's simply a representation to tell us not to go back to that point of focus where we're currently at. And when you become so good at shutting down how you feel and missing the earlier signals that might come with warning 1, warning 2, warning 3, warning 4, warning 5, warning 6, warning 7, then warning 8 that's a pain, is simply a surge of emotion triggered by a neurochemical output, and there's a cascade of physiological changes that triggers pain, and it's simply a warning signal to attend to yourself. Yes, in the moment, but it doesn't represent actual danger now, and none of those pains I've described in the last list represent real danger now. It's a danger signal based on a prediction of what might be coming in the future based on what you're focused on, but its foundation lies in a memory from the past of a moment that was painful physically, emotionally, psychologically, and had all the cues that came together to make that neural pathway a real output from the brain. And all that's happened is the body's seen enough cues and noticed enough internal feelings and thoughts and triggers to stimulate that output. And your role is to see that pain as a conditioned response. You can change the conditioning of persistent pain by looking at the thoughts, looking at the emotions, looking at your reactions to them, looking at the physical movements linked to it and the cues that are external and obvious triggers. And then the more subtle ones, which are the internal states and your habitual reactions and movements that you may be not seeing. Once you start to de-engineer the factors linked to persistent pain, you de-engineer the pain. I hope that's been helpful as an overview, and just gives you some of the things to think about, the contributors to pain that you might not have considered and you might want to start to consider.